Day 10. 10 lords are leaping. So we've had the ladies dancing on the lawn, now we've got the lords leaping on the lawn. And we've had the cows and the milkmaids, so the lawn is getting a bit of a hammering. So historically, the 10 lords a leaping was to remind us of the 10 commandments in the Old Covenant, in the Mosaic Covenant. We see that in Exodus chapter 20. And you're all familiar with them. I'm sure you can all quote the 10 commandments. You can probably remember a couple like, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honour your father and your mother, don't take the Lord's name on vain, keep the Sabbath, make it holy, etc., etc. And this signified a covenant period in Israel's history, which was not God's design. He actually wanted to give them the new covenant that we've got now, but they weren't ready for it after just coming out of 400 years of slavery. So they got their 10 commandments, they got the Mosaic covenant, and then they have a journey to walk through. That's what the song is telling us about the 10 lords a leaping. But I just want to explore what they could have had back then and what we've got now. And of course God knew that they weren't ready for it, but he was giving them the opportunity. So Jesus comes, and there is a couple of promises in the Bible that are pretty significant. One of them is the promise to Abraham that through his seed the whole nations will be blessed. Remember, him and his wife were barren at the time. Sarah was barren. And then the other one is to King David, where he says, you will not have a time when there isn't a king to sit on your throne. And it's kind of, as you read through scriptures, you kind of get lost in the Old Covenant of where those two promises are. So the writers of the New Covenant, the Gospels and the letters that Paul writes, were very careful to try and explain these to us. And as soon as we open up the New Testament, which is not the same as the New Covenant, that's another story, we get a whole list in Matthew chapter 1 of Jesus's genealogy that just shows us where he's coming from, that he is the son of David. This is the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. So Jesus is coming onto planet Earth, and he is about to fulfill the two promises within those two covenants that were in Israel's history. And Matthew here is telling us right off the bat, the get-go, that this is what Jesus is about to do. And Jesus does just that. And then we get to Acts. You remember the Acts, the story when the Holy Spirit came and 3,000 people were saved? It just happens to coincide with the 3,000 people that were killed back in the Moses day when they were, well, we won't go there with what they were doing, but when they were not following the covenant that Moses had given them through God. So in Acts chapter 2, Peter comes out, they've just been baptized and filled with the Holy Spirit, tongues of fire on the head, and there's heaps of people from the Diaspora that have come back to Jerusalem for one of their feasts, and they all hear the disciples speaking in their own language, in tongues, different tongues. And there's a whole teaching on tongues and what this kind of tongue was that we hear and tongues that we have today. So Peter stands up and starts addressing to the crowd, and he says, he's quoting from the prophet Joel, who says, in the last days, them's the last days, not now. God declares, I will pour out my spirit on all flesh, your sons and daughters will prophesy. Gifts of the Holy Spirit, we had that on day 7. Your young men will see visions, your old men shall dream dreams, and even on my male servants and female servants. In those days I will pour out my spirit, and they will prophesy. And I will show wonders in the heaven above, and signs on the earth below, blood, fire, vapour of smoke. The sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood, for the day of the Lord comes, great and magnificent day. Everyone who comes to pass that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested to you by God with mighty works and wonders and signs that God did through him in your midst. As you yourselves know, this Jesus delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God, you crucified and killed by the hands of lawless men. God raised him up, loosening the pangs of death, because he was not possible for him to be held. For David says concerning him, I saw the Lord always before me, for he is at my right hand, that I may not be shaken. Therefore my heart was glad, and my tongue rejoiced. My flesh will also dwell in hope, for you will not abandon my soul to Hades, or let your Holy One see corruption. You have made known my paths of life. You will make me full of gladness in your presence. Brothers, I say to you with confidence about the patriarch David, he was both dead and buried, and his tomb is with us to this day. Therefore, being a prophet and knowing that God has sworn with an oath to him that he would set one of his descendants on his throne, he foresaw and spoke about the resurrection of Christ. He was not abandoned to Hades, nor did his flesh see corruption. This Jesus God raised up, and of that we are all witnesses. Being therefore exalted at the right hand of God, having received from the Father the promise of the Holy Spirit, he has poured out this that you yourselves are seeing and hearing. For David did not ascend to the heavens, but say to himself, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool. Let all the house of Israel therefore know that for certain that God has made him both Lord and Christ, this Jesus whom you crucified. The Davidic covenant for somebody to sit on the throne of David was fulfilled in Jesus.